Hello and welcome everyone to this YouTube live where we are previewing the upcoming Women's World Cup, FIFA Women's World Cup, where quite surprisingly we are not seeing a lot of media coverage or constant updates that we would rather associate with any other FIFA tournament. For this, we have called Adidev Bhai, who has been with us once before in our Spotify episodes, episode number 21, when we spoke about the Euros, the women's Euros that happened last year. Thank you, Adidev Bhai, for taking out the time. I know it's just busy schedules, and I and Anukash will speak for each other when we say we have faced rejections in having people to come over and talk football with us. So we really do appreciate the time that you have taken out. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Also, rejections is a part and parcel of the whole process of probably making it big in any field. To be honest, so count yourself lucky to probably face that at this point of time, so that you don't have to face it in the future. But yes, what better topic to talk about right now? What better topic to probably research on as well, in terms of just information and the amount of novelty that you can get in terms of information, especially than the Women's World Cup, right? So that is something that I must.
Absolutely. And talking about the Women's World Cup, we already got women fans coming in for Adidev Bhai. And what I wanted to ask you is that, like, before we get into the depths of this topic, so Adidev Bhai, you I could see in your Instagram posts and on your social media activity that, you did a brilliant job during the IPL broadcasting and all. Just throw a bit of light on that. I'm sure our viewers would like to know about your excellent work there.
So what I did during the IPL was that I was a part of the broadcast team, that is Viacom 18. So on Geo Cinema this time out, they were broadcasting the IPL in 12 different languages. So one of those languages was Odia as well. So I was a part of the Odia team. I was writing scripts for all of the pre-shows. I was producing those pre-shows as well with so the anchor and the experts have an earphone that is in their ears, right? So the producers are
Was
talking
this
to those
was
ears.
this in the famous studios, Worldly?
No, not in the famous studios was English and Hindi.
Okay,
English, Hindi, and Gujarati were in the famous studios. This was at our office studios itself. That was in Lower Parel.
Lower Berlin.
So it was there. So this is something that I was doing, and I was also kind of heading the design and the video team as well, because there was no head per se. So I was managing the design and the video team as well in that aspect. So just supervising stuff, because I can't actively do that job. So that is something that I was doing, and also producing the live feed as well. So yeah, this is hectic work for around 2 months, 2.5 months, really hectic work. But met some quite intelligent minds in cricket. Met some good, like, met cricketers that you may not have known about, but they were really good in their own eras. Met some of those
Yeah.
cricketers as well, so very nice.
Interesting because I feel, Adidev Bhai, even though the last 1 year, 18 months have been largely football in my life, but cricket is something that I have followed
Right, I
about.
think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
sorry. Sometimes my just net deserts me. So it's interesting because I was mentioning about how cricket is a big part, and sometimes the Geo Cinemas move to traditionally move it into 12 different languages was really something that connected to the popular sections of our population across regional directions. So that's just beautiful that people can now listen to the game that they love in the language that they love. So
Right.
that's some great work out there. And like, coming back to the Women's World Cup, this event now has become more than a sporting event. It has become a symbol of equality, though.
Right.
Although the women's game, it does not manage to draw the numbers, it
Right.
definitely draws the thrill of the greatest sport on earth, as many football lovers would say. So
Right.
for you, what are the certain big generic factors or the generic review of this 32 nation World Cup that's starting tomorrow?
So As you put it rightly, right, just as you ended the question, 32 nation. That's the major difference this time out with eight new
Yeah.
nations coming into the picture. You don't really know how these eight nations will line up, or how the system and the philosophies of these eight nations are, because if we have to because if you have to look at surprises like these, right, surprises like these, you can probably talk about low the some of the lowly ranked sides that are playing this World Cup for probably the first time, like a Zambia, for example, right? They stunned
Yes.
Germany in a friendly right now. Haiti lost only by a single goal to Nigeria. So Nigeria, which is still considered a very decent team, regardless of whatever turmoil they're facing in the women's football circuit, they're still considered a very decent team in football, right? So all of these pertain to really great storylines. Another great storyline is the fact that when you're talking about Group F and probably Group E for that matter, Group F has a fantastic heavyweight clash in France versus Brazil. Then Group E offers the repeat of the 2019 final between US and
Yeah.
Netherlands, which
Yes.
US won 2-0. And I remember Megan Rapinoe scored one of those goals. Megan Rapinoe is now 34. The US team is 4 years older now. The core is aging in that US team, but it still has some fantastic players. Like obviously Sophie Smith is one of those standout wingers that they do have. Uh, you consider a lot of teams favorites, but a lot of teams are also challengers in this, right? You
Yes.
would probably say that that the the group of death is Nigeria, Canada, Republic of Ireland, and Australia, because you probably have Canada, who finished in who have had their best finish as being a part of the last top four. Nigeria, I just mentioned, are a quite decent football team. Australia are home favorites, right? Like they are the home nation. They have the 12th man behind them. They have Sam Kerr as one who's
Mm.
leading the line. They have in the final third, they have a lot of speed and agility, and a lot of directness that creates short creating actions, that
Yeah.
creates a lot
Right.
of attacking threat, right? That is something that they do have. So when you are saying that, okay, fine, the group of death are these four teams, this is the group of death, you also have to realize the fact that there is another group that can probably turn things around, and that is the group in which France and Brazil are in, right? And because that is another group that could be that anything can happen in that group. But if I have to start talking about teams that can really, uh, that can really do some damage, I think this is the time when Germany has to, hit top form, right?
Right.
Uh, when you're looking at Germany's group, and the basic premise of that Germany group is that all of the three teams that are grouped with Germany, interestingly, have finished second placed in their respective continents,
Mm.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So,
Interesting.
so it is Germany have a very easy group in front of them, right? They have very easy group, and they all of these teams have finished second placed. Right, all of these teams are not exactly favorites when it comes to Germany. So this is their time to hit top form in my eyes, and I have some notes for Germany as well, which I had created for this podcast especially. Uh,
Yeah, we do appreciate the due diligence done behind it, right?
yeah, yeah. But and when I was looking at Germany as the team as well, they are the only other side in the World Cup to score like 100 plus goals. Then they also have the Euros top scorer and the Bundesliga. When you're looking at that strike partnership, or even when you're looking at those strikers who can score more goals, that is the kind of a mindset when they have with the strikers, because their two strikers are one is Alex Pop, who has who's the Euros top goal scorer and who's also the Bundesliga top goal scorer this last season. And on the
Right.
other side, competing against her for that particular spot would probably be Leah Schuller, who's Bayern's prolific goal scorer. So you have two nailed on number nines there, and behind them, then you have the attacking impetus with some really good wingers with Nicola Nyomi, Sueva Hutt, who can also Sueva Huth, sorry, who can also double up as number 10, because in the number 10 position also they have a decent amount of depth. Again, the defense is wanting when it comes to Germany. That is an area of concern. But I think when you look at their attacking impetus, and if I want to uh, take you back to that time when Germany lost their final against England, if I'm not wrong.
Mm.
When in
In
extra
Wembley,
time,
right?
I think, yeah, I think they lost that final in the Euros, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They were
It was
they were
in the Euros in Wembley itself.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So they were the runners up at Wembley for the Euros. So I think until 90 minutes, if you look at the XG, you compare the XG between England and Germany, Germany had the higher XG uh, during that game. Still, they went out with a runners up medal that was highly unlucky. And I think this time around, they would want to forget that kind of a memory, and they would want to push on through because, yes, let's face it, as I had said before, this is a relatively easier group for them. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that.
mean, it's just very true that different teams are coming with different kind of emotions, expectations around it. And to Anukar sir, I will ask a very broader question, and I feel Adidev has done an exceptional job in making us go through the nitty gritties, the
Yeah,
details of the tournament, and what are the things that one should look forward if he's a fan of he or she is a fan of women's football, but does not know a lot of how to get around it. So Anukar sir, the Women's World Cup, a global football tournament, kicked off in 1991. Since then, it has been the stage for women to make a name for themselves. And over the last 5 to 10 years, not just in the world of football, but in the world of sports in general, women in sport has been a big discussion. And in my opinion, rightly so, because they have their own way of doing things. And even though they might not be drawing the attendance numbers, the audience numbers, but I just feel when it comes to football, the action is almost of, like, of course the physical, it's not as physical as the men's game. The pace sometimes might not be matched to the men's game, but I know watching a women's cricket game and watching a men's cricket game is starkly in difference as compared to a men's and a women's football game. So now that in 2022, in 2023, we are having this Women's World Cup, Anukar sir, there are larger repercussions not only on the field but also off it, right?
yeah, definitely. I think very rightfully mentioned, and a lot of our viewers have been saying these things that it's going to be interesting how this World Cup is going to turn out to be. And like, of course, I would take some of our my favorite comments, like people saying good things about the podcast. But yeah, see, on a serious note, man, of course, the game is very different in its landscape. But I do I know I mentioned it on the podcast before also, how that one match you made me watch, it like really opened up a whole horizon for me when it comes to women's football. And definitely, like in this World Cup, if we look, like Adidev bhai really mentioned an interesting point about France. Now France are being managed by Herb Renard, the same guy who was the manager when Saudi Arabia won against Argentina in the men's World Cup. So you look at it, you look at Germany, they have got a midfielder in Sarah Darbitz, someone who has been a standout performer, who was in 2019 absolutely lit up the tournament. So, like things like that really make a difference. Really do a lot of things for the women's game. And you look at a team like Spain, for that matter. They have got the Ballon d'Or winner, Alexia Putellas. I mean, players like that. I mean, I'm sure there are, like, as we are moving towards the time when, although not being covered in the mainstream media, on social media, people are talking about it. It's starting to buzz in, and like when you got like teams like Brazil, players like Marta who have scored 17 goals for them are like all-time top scorers. England with the likes of Chloe Kelly, Beth Mead. I mean, there are players really to look forward to when it comes to this World Cup, and I think it's going to be one hell of a ride. Maybe it won't be as physical as the men's game, but you know what? It's like the finesse of the women's game is, I think, what makes it stand apart. And I just feel that although different in its landscape, the love for the game will be there. And this time around, we will be seeing a palpable change because with the Euros, what we saw was that people had started to change their perspective with the women's game. People had started to watch it. I remember on our podcast itself, people were wanting to engage on those on the Women Europe related, posts. And I think this time around also, this is the time when, it will come to fruition and the World Cup will be watched a lot more. And I, for myself, would be looking forward to it because, like, there's a lot of difference. If you look at the men's game, the US hardly makes it ever to the quarterfinals. You look at the US team of the women's team, they have won 4 of the 8 editions. So, like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of difference here, but there are a lot of interesting things to see, and I'm sure, like, it's going to be one hell of a ride.
I feel while there's an interesting comment by Devyansh here, what I want to ask Adidev Bhai next is Adidev Bhai, in 1999, the tournament returned to the United States, gifting the world numerous memorable moments. I say that because the final match between US and China had a record breaking crowd of 90,000 plus spectators
Right, right.
in a historic venue at the Rose Bowl, which
Hmm.
also witnessed another penalty shootout, which ended up in a victory for the US team. So, editions like the World Cup, if you see the men's World Cup, I remember my father, who has largely been a cricket fan, a tennis fan.
Hmm.
He mentions about what Maradona had done in the '86 World Cup, in the '82 World Cup, and the Women's World Cup has had moments like this almost 2 decades earlier. 90,000 spectators for a World Cup final in '99. In
Hmm.
my opinion, with my limited experience and as someone who is pursuing sports management, understanding what the global sports arena means for both the genders, I just want this World Cup starting in Australia and New Zealand to have that kind of a cover and that kind of a satiating the hunger of the fans around the world. Do you think, with your experience, there is enough consumption or appetite around the football world for the women's game?
I think the it all comes down to again the I think this is one thing that we had touched on in our last podcast as well. It all comes down to how you are following the game.
Yeah.
This is I think this is not a problem as well, but this is kind of like a norm that we face in the community currently. That this is on the basis of how you watch football. That's how you start appreciating whether it's NWSL, whether it's the EPL, whether it's the La Liga, whether it's the UWCL, anything of that sort, right? So you start appreciating football according to how you are following the game. So many
Yeah.
people have different ways of just following the game, right? Many people would probably want to look at, okay, fine, I want to look at let's say if I'm giving the name of Sam Kerr, right? Sam Kerr has come to Mumbai. Sam Kerr has played a few games, 1 or 2 games in Mumbai. People are the Mumbai City FC. A lot of Mumbai City FC fans have met with Sam Kerr. Now they'll watch the Women's World Cup and just focus on Sam Kerr in Australian colors, right? They'll try to watch Australia games jada and they will focus on Sam Kerr more. And that is how they'll start. They'll watch the game. In this process, they'll probably discover, okay, fine, there are 2 or 3 players more. But we can't expect these very watchers to probably say that, ये 2-3 player मैंने यार देखे for sure, because we are expecting them to
Right.
just watch Sam Kerr, right?
Absolutely.
We are expecting them to just to watch Sam Kerr, because honestly speaking, when a person is also a fan of, let's say, they are watching women's football because of Sam Kerr. If I have to take another person's name, let's say Megan Rapinoe for that matter, right? Megan Rapinoe, a lot of a lot of people have turned to women's football also because of Megan Rapinoe, because of how Megan Rapinoe projects herself outside of the field, right?
Yeah.
That is something that has also inspired a lot of people, and uh, told them that okay, fine, let's look at her on the pitch. And on the pitch, she has been fire for quite some time. Just it's just sad that she's announcing her retirement like at the end of 2023, but since a long time she has been on fire. So again, people will watch Megan Rapinoe's game just to see Megan Rapinoe. They will not watch
Yeah.
Megan Rapinoe's game to see USA, right? This is how ball watching, or this is how football watching differs from person to person. I would ideally
Mm.
like the fact that this women's World Cup does really go up in terms of viewership, or in terms of go up in terms of, let's say, stadium attendance as well, because uh, the Champions League final this time out had an amazing stadium attendance, if I'm not wrong. So that was something that I was very
Even
that
though
I
it
was
had Manchester City.
sorry.
Even though it had Manchester City.
Yeah, no, I'm saying the Champions League final, of the ladies.
Okay, okay, okay,
Oh,
okay, okay.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
the
Interesting.
UWC.
And I feel the point that Adidev has made here is very interesting, because the especially the fact made for Megan Rapinoe. There's a question that Divyansh has asked us over here,
So
like Germany. Yeah,
I
Adidev.
would like to answer this question.
Yeah, yeah. Go for it.
So with the USA national team, I would believe, if you're just talking about, I'll first talk about the men's team. The men's team, in an individual perspective, they do have good players, right? But the stock of these good players start decreasing because they are not playing. They are good players. They are not probably team players. I'm looking at everyone around me, right? I'm looking at Christian Pulisic. I'm looking at Weston McKennie. Christian Pulisic's form dropped, but he's been amazing for USA throughout, right? Weston McKennie was with Leeds when they got relegated. Now he's come back to Juventus. Now his future is up in tatters. USA football as a product is being marketed a lot throughout Europe, but the players who are going throughout Europe, I feel, are not getting enough coaching in terms of honing their talent from a team building perspective. That is
Mm.
something that's happening with US male players. When it comes to US women now, US women this time out, we will see a slightly different dynamic to a US women's national team, because as of now we still have an aging core. That is, yeah, Megan. As I said, like I was talking about Megan Rapinoe being there. Then you have in the midfield, Julie Ertz would come back after an injury layoff and after a pregnancy, right? On her day, she is an extremely good ball winning midfielder, but she is crossing that age right now. So they are going towards a different direction. They are going towards a different young age, slightly younger age. They are still capable of being an absolute master house, but again, it would all depend on how the synergies start to come
Yeah.
together. You can also, I think that is not a problem with the US national team, but I think this has become a trend with the US national team for me, because also another thing that I've noticed with the US men's national team is there is a lot more criticism rather than feedback when it comes to the US men's national team.
Mm.
Uh,
Absolutely, I agree. I agree.
there's a lot more criticism there.
Right.
I mean, Christian Pulisic is not a Lionel Messi. Weston McKennie is not a Rodrigo De Paul. I mean, there are some things that need to be assessed as they are. So, I mean, that is something that needs to be understood as well while discussing while discussing the USMNT. So, I mean,
Right,
that
right.
is something that I feel that is lacking with the US men's national team. That is why when you made the comparison with USMNT and Germany, yes, there are still a lot of expectations from Germany, and it has been a very, very long time since Germany had won that World Cup. It feels like a very, very long time, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's interesting that we talk about Germany, because that's the perfect segue into our last topic for this YouTube live. Is I will also include a bit of history behind it. Germany hosted the tournament of 2011 after they
Yeah.
dominated and won the past two tournaments, drawing in passionate fans from all around the world. And Japan stunned the world by defeating the USA in the final, displaying remarkable spirit and becoming the first Asian nation to win the Women's World Cup. So it was a great step for Asian football. And Anukar sir, I will briefly come to you here first before we again hear what Adidev Bhai has to say. Uh, we had Manisha Kalyan with us, one of the Indian
Yeah,
female football players. Indian women's football team making it to the World Cup is probably too much of a far-fetched dream right now, or maybe not. Who knows? I am not privy to all the ideas, strategies behind it, but. Uh, all of us in India would be happy if a Asian nation does well in the upcoming Women's World Cup, right, Anukar sir? Won't you agree?
definitely. Like, I mean, for now, that is what we can do. But yeah, I mean, I just feel that in India also the talent is there if it's again given the right infrastructure. We saw how, Manisha Kalyan, when she came on the podcast, how she talked about, her dreams and how she was identified by the scouts. And, like she's making a name for herself in the Champions League there, and, playing for Apollo Ladies. And what I feel is that, names like that, like we need that snowball effect from one event happening in. And I think like personally what I feel is that when she scored that goal against Brazil, maybe that should have had that snowball effect. But I just feel that if the women's game is something, like we have seen that with the men's game, that the men's team has kind of improved because the fandom has increased. So I just feel that if the women's game, like through the women's Euros, if the people can start watching it more, like I definitely think that would be the norm this time around. Then I feel that that would definitely that main when the viewership increases, the ad revenue increases, and with time I just feel that the game would be focused upon more relatively the women's game. And if given the right infrastructure, there's all there is in the country, like in a country of 1.5 billion, the population, where the population is that much. I just feel that you can't tell me that there isn't talent out there. It's just the right tools aren't available at the moment. But yeah, like as with the men's game, improvements can be seen if the money and the right things at the grassroots level are being done. Of course, like then there are other things which are not happening very well, like how we saw with the men's game only, with like in which they were not sent to the Asian Games. Like there's a lot of speculation going on in the media about it. So of course, like there are obstacles in the path, but I just hope that we can really overcome them in the future.
Yeah, Adidev Bhai, I know we have been keeping you for much longer than what we have promised, but I
Mhm.
believe you are partially to be blamed for that because of your accurate and well informed answers. The last question that I've got is, what are your general views and what are your expectations, and what basically do you want to see happen in this World Cup, which would probably just satisfy many of our football enthusiasts?
And your favorite four also, like since it's a
My
question
Yeah.
from
my
us.
my favorite four would be fuck, this is tough. I think my favorite four would be um, England if they sort out their defensive issues a bit, because they are very much riddled with injuries in that department.
Yeah.
Uh, then
USA also has to be one of them, right?
yeah. That's when I'm talking about synergies in Germany's defense. England have the same problem there. So I think none of those four defenders have played together for quite some time in England's the lineup that finished the Euros, that Euro final. None of those four have played together since
But
then.
I guess these are just professional players after 2 3 weeks. Even though
Yeah,
football requires great coordination, they'll just
because if
they'll
this was
strike
a
a goal.
if this was a league, then it would have made sense. But as it's a it's a tournament structure, you have to come to form in the second game itself. Like you
Yeah,
have
you
to
know.
understand your teammates in the second game itself. You don't have time. But I still have, I would say England. I would take the name of Spain this time
Yeah,
out.
interesting.
Because I know they're missing two big name players because of the whole tiff that they're having with the federation around 15 players rejected call-ups. Uh,
Yeah,
so uh, so they are missing two players, but they still have Alexis Putellas, and they have a very uh, that whole that whole system that they have, right? They bring young players into the national team every time. La Rojas, they always bring young players into the national team, and that whole ball dominant strategy that they have, it's I really want them to go far. They have in this is the third World Cup and they have never gone
Yeah,
past the round of 16. So
correct, correct.
I think this should be their time. Germany is my third option for sure, and USA is my fourth. I don't think Australia are Australia, even though the home crowd is going behind them. I think Australia may just slip in the quarters.
Yeah, let's continue to support and grow women's football, empowering the next generation of stars. Let's wear the jerseys one more time. Let's raise the chance and feel the thrill one more time. Not just because they are girls, but because it's football, the game that all of us absolutely love. This year's tournament will start tomorrow, as you mentioned, in Australia and New Zealand. We can surely expect some underdog run, some memorable moments, and a team which will conquer at the end of it all. Thank you, Adidev, for taking out the time. Thank
No
you,
problem, no
Anukarsh.
problem.
It's been one of our most fruitful YouTube lives, and I think the first one that's gone past the 30-minute mark, but it's been completely worth it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and those lovely comments. See you around. Bye.